My sister prank called my boss and got me fired. After I got a better job, my family asked for money. I grinned and said, "Check your mail." Their faces went white when they opened. Imagine losing everything. Your career, your reputation, your sense of security, because your own sister deliberately stabbed you in the back. But what happens when years later you rebuild from the ashes and find unexpected millions, only for that same family to come crawling back, hands outstretched, demanding their share? Hey everyone, it's Autumn here, and honestly, the thought of telling this story still makes my stomach churn a little, even now. This isn't just about a job. It's about betrayal so deep it carves a wound in your soul. After Ashley completely derailed my career, I found myself with nothing. Absolutely nothing. But through sheer grit, I clawed my way back, building a life I never dreamed of. And wouldn't you know it, as soon as word got out about my new prosperity, my family, who'd ignored me when I was struggling, suddenly remembered I existed. They showed up expecting handouts, after years of dismissing, even actively sabotaging me. Honestly, it left me speechless. So I just gave them a sweet smile and said, "Check your mailboxes tomorrow." The look on their faces when they actually did? Priceless. Okay, so let's rewind to 2008. But the real story started much, much earlier, back in our perfectly normal middle-class neighborhood in Boston. From the outside, we were the picture of suburban bliss. The Addams family, colonial house, weekend barbecues, forced game nights. But behind those closed doors, things were anything but healthy. From day one, I was somehow designated the responsible one. By age 10, I was helping with bills, making sure my younger sister Ashley got to school, and desperately trying to mediate my parents' endless arguments. Ashley, meanwhile, was encouraged to just be a kid, which was code for letting her avoid any responsibility, ever. Ashley, 2 years younger than me, grew up believing the entire universe revolved around her. She had that conventional beauty, blonde hair, blue eyes, cheerleader vibe, the kind that just seemed to open doors for her. My parents, Margaret and Richard, treated her like their precious princess, while I was more like the castle staff. Ashley has a sensitive spirit. My mother would coo whenever Ashley threw a tantrum about chores. Then she'd turn to me and say, "You're just naturally more capable, Autumn." Translation, I'll handle everything so Ashley doesn't have to lift a finger. Even my older brother, Ethan, 30 at the time, found it easier to just side with Ashley. "Just let her have her way," he'd sigh. "It's not worth the drama." He figured out early that keeping Ashley happy meant a peaceful life, even if it meant sacrificing me. Despite this painfully unbalanced treatment, I threw myself into academics. I was desperate to create my own path, to escape. I graduated high school with a 4.0 GPA, snagged a partial scholarship to Boston University, and then worked 2 part-time jobs just to cover the rest. Meanwhile, my parents shelled out for Ashley's full ride to 3 different colleges, none of which she bothered to finish. "College just isn't the right environment for my creativity," she'd declare after each dropout, and my parents would nod sympathetically. This ridiculous pattern continued through her brief parent-funded attempts at being a yoga instructor, a life coach, a fashion vlogger, a real estate agent, you name it, all funded by my supposedly tight-budget parents. When I finally graduated with my marketing degree, I tried to have a small celebration dinner. Ashley showed up 2 hours late, made a huge scene about the restaurant's limited vegan options. She was vegan for that 1 week. And then, when my father toasted my accomplishment, she burst into tears, effectively making the entire evening about comforting her. It was infuriating. I landed my first professional job at Meridian Marketing, a mid-sized firm downtown. The starting salary wasn't impressive, but it was mine. I had benefits and real growth potential. I rented a tiny 1-bedroom, bought professional clothes from thrift stores, and started building my career, brick by careful, painstaking brick. And with each small step forward I took, Ashley's resentment just festered. When I was featured in a local business publication for a campaign, she accidentally spilled red wine on my only professional dress the night before an important client meeting. When I was invited to speak at a marketing conference, she called me repeatedly during my presentation until I had to turn my phone off completely, making me miss a crucial call from my boss later. But the absolute worst incident before everything blew up? I was interviewing for a position at a larger firm, a huge opportunity. I'd carefully laid out my navy blue suit I'd saved for months to buy it, the night before. The morning of the interview, I woke up to find it covered in foundation makeup, utterly ruined. Ashley swore she'd just been looking for a tissue in my room and must have knocked over her makeup. I missed the interview. The opportunity was gone. Despite all this, I tried to maintain a relationship. Sunday dinners were mandatory in my parents' eyes, so I showed up, dutifully enduring Ashley's backhanded compliments and my parents' casual dismissals of my achievements. "Marketing isn't really changing the world, though, is it?" my father would say after I shared news of a successful campaign. But when Ashley announced her latest scheme to become an influencer, they were all enthusiasm, all support. I swallowed my frustrations, maintained the peace, and poured everything into my career at Meridian. After 2 years of consistent, grinding performance, I was finally being considered for a junior management position. This wasn't just a raise. It was a significant salary increase, more creative control, and, more importantly, validation. It meant my hard work was finally paying off. I had no idea that Ashley had been watching my progress with a toxic, growing bitterness, or that she was about to take drastic, calculated action to derail everything I had worked so hard to build. I was 2 years in at Meridian, really hitting my stride. My client retention rate was the highest in the department. I'd brought in 3 new major accounts. My boss, Victoria Pearson, had started inviting me to leadership meetings, dropping clear hints about my future with the company. The promotion to junior marketing director was within my grasp. It had opened up when my mentor, Derek, left for Chicago, and Victoria asked me to prepare a presentation outlining my vision for the department, essentially an audition. I poured weeks into it, staying late, fine-tuning every slide, practicing until I could present it in my sleep. The big day was a Thursday morning. Wednesday night, I called my family to cancel our usual Sunday dinner. I needed the weekend to prepare. "Of course your job comes first," my mother said with that familiar, passive-aggressive sigh. Ashley was planning to announce some big news, but I suppose that can wait. I felt the usual guilt, but I stood my ground. "Mom, this is really important. I'll make it up to Ashley next weekend." Later that night, Ashley called. "Way to ruin my special announcement," she snapped, no preamble. "I'm sorry, Ash," I said, trying to diffuse it. "What's your news? Wouldn't you like to know?" She sneered. "Some sister you are, always thinking about yourself and your precious career." I tried to explain how crucial this presentation was, but she just hung up on me. I felt uneasy as I went to bed, a knot in my stomach, but I pushed it aside. I had to focus on tomorrow. Thursday morning, I woke early, put on my best suit, a charcoal gray one I'd splurged on for important meetings, and headed to the office an hour early to set up. I swiped my key card at the building entrance. The security panel flashed red. Denied. I tried again. Same result. Figuring it was a system glitch, I called reception. Donna, the receptionist, sounded strange. "I'm sorry, Miss Adams," she said, her voice strained. "I've been instructed not to let you in. Miss Pearson would like you to call her directly." Confused, a cold dread starting to creep in, I called Victoria. Her normally warm voice was ice. Cold. "I'm extremely disappointed in you, Autumn," she said, cutting me off before I could even speak. "After everything we've built, to throw it away like this is beyond unprofessional." "Victoria, I don't understand," I stammered, my heart pounding. "Don't insult me by pretending. You called me at 11:30 last night, clearly intoxicated, saying you were quitting effective immediately. You said, and I quote, 'The company is a joke and you're the biggest joke of all.' You made racist comments about our clients and said vile things about your colleagues. I recorded the call as company policy requires, so don't bother denying it." My blood ran cold. "Victoria, that wasn't me. I was home, preparing for today's presentation. I would never say." "Autumn, your personal belongings will be couriered to your home address. Your final paycheck will be processed according to state law. Do not attempt to enter the building again, or we will involve security." Click. The line went dead. I stood on the sidewalk outside the building I'd poured my life into, dizzy with shock and confusion. People I'd worked with for years walked past me, averting their eyes or giving me looks of pure disgust. Finally, Brian from accounting approached cautiously. "Autumn, you should go home. Everyone heard about the call." "Brian, I didn't make any call." "Someone is impersonating me." He looked deeply uncomfortable but handed me his phone. "Someone recorded part of it, and it's been shared around the office. Listen." I heard it. A voice that sounded horrifyingly like mine. Slurring words, saying terrible things about Victoria and the company, using language I would never utter. The voice was similar, but with slight differences, nuances only people who knew me intimately would catch. That's when it hit me. Ashley. She could always do a perfect impression of me. A talent she'd used to prank my friends, to call my high school crushes, and embarrass me. Brian, that's not me. That's my sister. She can mimic my voice. The pity in his eyes told me he didn't believe a word. Just go home, Autumn. Don't make this worse. Security arrived moments later, escorting me off the property like a criminal. As I walked home in a daze, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, one of my colleagues sharing the recording. I forced myself to listen to more of it, confirming my awful suspicions. The cadence, certain phrases. It was definitely Ashley's imitation of me, convincing enough to fool my boss to ruin my life. I went straight to my parents' house. I knew Ashley would be there. She was sitting in the kitchen with my mother, scrolling through Instagram filters, looking utterly carefree. You called my boss pretending to be me, I said, my voice shaking with a rage and hurt I hadn't known I possessed. You got me fired. Ashley looked up, momentarily startled, before her face settled into perfect innocence. What are you talking about? Don't lie to me. You called my office last night, imitated my voice, and got me fired the day of my big presentation. My mother immediately stepped between us. Autumn, calm down. Why would Ashley do something like that? Because she's always been jealous of me. Because I was about to get promoted. Because she can't stand to see me succeed. Ashley's innocent facade cracked then, just slightly. A smirk flashed across her face before she burst into crocodile tears. I was just playing a joke. I didn't think they'd actually fire you. I was going to call back today and say it was a prank. My father entered the kitchen, drawn by the shouting. What's all this? I explained what had happened, showed him the recording on my phone. Instead of being horrified, he frowned at me. You're overreacting. Ashley made a mistake. She didn't mean any harm. A mistake? She deliberately got me fired. My reputation in the industry is ruined. No one's going to hire me after this. Ashley sniffled dramatically. It was just supposed to be funny. You're always so serious about your job. I thought you'd laugh. I worked there for almost 3 years. I was about to be promoted. My mother put her arm around Ashley, hugging her protectively. You know, your sister has a different sense of humor. And honestly, if they fired you that easily, maybe it wasn't a good place to work. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you serious right now? She impersonated me, said racist things in my name, and burned my professional reputation to the ground. My brother Ethan arrived, summoned by my mother's urgent text. After hearing both sides, he just shrugged. It's not great what Ashley did, but you're making it worse by freaking out. Just explain to your boss what happened. I tried. They don't believe me. They have a recording of me saying horrible things. Then maybe take this as a sign to try something new, my father suggested, as if I'd simply had a minor setback rather than a catastrophic, deliberate betrayal. You were always talking about how stressful that job was. Anyway. I looked at my family. Ashley's feigned tears, my mother's protective embrace, my father's dismissive attitude, Ethan's chilling indifference. And in that moment, a fundamental, painful truth clicked into place. They would never take my side against Ashley. They would never hold her accountable for anything. I need you all to acknowledge what she did, I said quietly, my voice barely a whisper. I need an apology, and I need you to understand how serious this is. Instead, I got variations of, you're overreacting. It was just a joke. You'll find another job. Not one person in my family truly acknowledged the gravity of what Ashley had done. I left their house that day with a clarity I'd never had before. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had just conditionally excused the deliberate sabotage of my career. Something fundamental broke inside me. And paradoxically, something else grew stronger. The weeks that followed were some of the darkest of my life. I filed for unemployment, but there was a review because I'd been terminated for cause. My emergency savings covered less than 2 months of expenses, and the Boston rental market is brutally unforgiving. I applied for dozens of marketing positions, but word had spread like wildfire in the tight-knit Boston marketing community. Even when I managed to get interviews, the conversations would inevitably turn awkward. We heard about an incident at Meridian, one interviewer said delicately. Would you care to explain that situation? No matter how I explained it, the damage was done. Who would believe it was my sister impersonating me? It sounded like a desperate, implausible excuse. By the 6-week mark, I was skipping meals to stretch my budget and had received a notice from my landlord about late rent. I avoided my family's calls, unable to bear their dismissive attitude or Ashley's superficial apologies that always circled back to how I was overreacting. One particularly low evening, sitting at my kitchen table, spreadsheets calculating how many more days I could keep my apartment, I received a text from my mother. Ashley's moving to New York for an amazing opportunity with a social media company. We're having a celebration dinner Sunday. Your presence is expected. No questions about how I was doing. No acknowledgement of my situation. Just a command to celebrate the sister who had just destroyed my career. I didn't respond. I didn't attend. The next day, I pawned my grandmother's silver bracelet, the one truly meaningful piece of jewelry I owned, just to cover my rent. That afternoon, more out of desperation than networking enthusiasm, I dragged myself to a free tech industry mixer downtown. I couldn't afford new business cards, so I carefully crossed out my old Meridian info and wrote my personal email on them. The event was packed with startup employees in casual clothes that somehow still looked expensive. I felt conspicuously out of place in my one remaining professional outfit, now slightly too loose after weeks of budget meals. "You look like you could use this more than me," a voice said beside me. A woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair held out a glass of wine. "Open bar's the only reason half these people show up anyway." "That obvious, huh?" I attempted a weak smile, accepting the glass. "I'm Elaine Winters," she said, extending her hand. "Chief Operating Officer at Nexus Technologies." "Autumn Adams," I replied. "Currently between opportunities. Honest. Honest." "I like that." Elaine's sharp eyes assessed me. "What's your field?" I briefly explained my marketing background, carefully avoiding the painful details of how my last position ended. "Interesting," she mused. "We actually need someone who understands traditional marketing. All these tech kids think social media is the only channel that matters." She pulled out a business card. "We're a fintech startup developing an app that helps people manage shared expenses. Come by tomorrow at 10 a.m. I can't promise anything glamorous, but we need smart people who understand how to communicate with audiences over 30. I stared at the card. "Just like that?" "Just like that. I trust my instincts about people. Always have." She gestured around the room. "Everyone here is trying to be someone. You're just trying to survive. That kind of hunger is valuable." The next day, I arrived at Nexus Technologies, a converted warehouse with exposed brick walls and too many plants. The position Elaine offered was several steps down from my previous role, essentially a marketing coordinator when I'd been on track for directorship. The salary was barely enough to cover my expenses, but it was something. A lifeline when I was drowning. "I should warn you," I said during the interview. "I left my last position under difficult circumstances." Elaine waved it away. "We're a startup. Everyone here has a past. What matters is what you bring to the table." I accepted the position on the spot. The work was initially mundane, creating basic marketing materials, managing social media, writing blog posts about financial management. But the environment was nothing like Meridian's suffocating corporate structure. Ideas were valued, no matter who suggested them. Failures were treated as learning opportunities, not career-ending mistakes. 3 weeks in, during a brainstorming session about how to market their app to non-tech-savvy users, I suggested developing a series of animated explainer videos featuring relatable characters navigating awkward money situations between friends and family. "That's actually brilliant," said Noah, the skeptical product manager who rarely approved marketing ideas. "We've been so focused on the technical features, we forgot about the emotional component of lending and borrowing." Elaine gave me a small nod of approval. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks: competence, value, purpose. My tiny apartment became my sanctuary. I deleted social media apps, desperate to avoid updates from my family or former colleagues. I started journaling, trying to process the raw feelings of betrayal and abandonment. I even adopted a rescue dog, a nervous, one-eyed terrier mix named Bella, who had also been discarded through no fault of her own. Gradually, I built a new routine. Early mornings with Bella at the dog park, work at Nexus, evenings spent learning about fintech and app development so I could contribute more effectively. I made one friend, Madison, the office manager at Nexus, who invited me to a weekly trivia night. "Family drama," she said when I vaguely explained why I always declined Sunday invitations. "Been there. My brother stole my identity and ran up 20 grand in credit card debt when I was in college." "How did you handle it?" I asked, genuinely curious. Press charges, she said matter-of-factly. Haven't spoken to him in 7 years. Best decision I ever made. Her straightforwardness was so refreshing after years of my family's emotional manipulation. Madison didn't expect me to forgive toxic behavior in the name of family loyalty. 6 months into my time at Nexus, I had paid off the small debts I'd accumulated during unemployment and was finally rebuilding my savings. The company was gaining traction, user numbers steadily climbing. My explainer video series had received overwhelmingly positive feedback and was even credited with improving user retention. I still felt the ache of my family's betrayal, a dull throb, but it no longer dominated my thoughts. I was building something new, a life defined by my choices rather than their expectations. What I didn't realize was that this modest recovery was just the beginning. Nexus Technologies was about to take off in a way none of us anticipated, and my decision to take a chance on a struggling startup was about to change everything. Exactly 6 months and 2 weeks after joining Nexus, our small team gathered in the conference room for what we thought was a routine meeting. Elaine walked in with a bottle of champagne, followed by Daniel, our CEO, who was rarely in the office. We did it, Elaine announced, popping the cork with practiced ease. Venture capital funding, $15 million. The room erupted in cheers. For a struggling startup running on fumes and faith, this was truly life-changing news. Daniel explained that a major investment firm had been incredibly impressed with our user growth and retention rates, metrics directly tied to the marketing strategies I had implemented. Your explainer video series sealed the deal, he told me afterward, raising his plastic champagne cup. They said it demonstrated we understand our market in a way most fintech companies don't. The funding changed everything. We moved from our quirky warehouse to sleek, proper offices in a downtown high-rise. Our team expanded rapidly, and I received a promotion to marketing director with a salary that literally made my eyes widen when I saw the offer letter. You earned this, Elaine said when I expressed disbelief. You saw what we were trying to do and translated it for normal humans. That's rare in this industry. The promotion also came with stock options, standard practice in startups, though I hadn't expected such a generous allocation. At the time, they felt like monopoly money. Nexus was still private, still unproven. 9 months later, everything changed again. Our app's user base had grown exponentially, especially after we added features for roommates and small businesses to manage shared expenses. A major financial technology corporation made an acquisition offer that the board simply couldn't refuse. The day the acquisition was finalized, Daniel called me into his office. Your options are fully vested because of the acquisition, he explained. At the agreed share price, they're worth approximately $2,700,000. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. Million. He smiled. Welcome to Tech, Autumn. Sometimes being in the right place at the right time pays off. I left his office in a daze, clutching paperwork I barely understood. After taxes, it would be less, of course, but still. I had gone from pawning my grandmother's bracelet to having more money than I'd ever imagined. The acquiring company retained most of Nexus's team, including me, with incredibly generous compensation packages. Suddenly, I was a marketing executive at a major corporation, leading a team of people, some older and more experienced than myself. First, I bought my grandmother's bracelet back from the pawn shop, along with every other piece they had that reminded me of her. Then, I purchased a beautiful townhouse in Beacon Hill, a historic neighborhood I'd always admired but never imagined I could afford. I furnished it simply but elegantly, creating the peaceful sanctuary I'd always wanted. Bella upgraded from nervous rescue to pampered princess, with a custom dog bed in every room and regular appointments with a doggy therapist to work through her anxiety issues. I started seeing a therapist too, working through the complex feelings about my family that resurfaced as my circumstances improved. You've achieved remarkable success, Dr. Patterson observed. How does that feel in the context of your family's lack of support? Validating, I admitted, but also lonely. I wish I had people who truly cared to share it with. This realization led me to focus on building genuine connections. I deepened my friendship with Madison, who had also done well in the acquisition. I joined a photography club, pursuing a passion I'd abandoned years ago. I volunteered walking shelter dogs on weekends, finding purpose and helping animals like Bella find their forever homes. Throughout this period of transformation, I maintained my distance from my family. I hadn't blocked their numbers, but I rarely responded to their occasional, surface-level texts, birthday wishes, holiday greetings, never any acknowledgement of past harm or genuine inquiries about my well-being. I did change my email address and moved without providing my new one, quietly disconnecting from their ability to reach me in person. I wasn't hiding exactly, but I needed space to heal and grow without their toxic influence. 16 months after Ashley got me fired, I was featured in Boston Business Journal's 40 Under 40 list, highlighting local business leaders making an impact. The article included my photo and a brief profile detailing my role in Nexus's success and subsequent acquisition. 3 days after it was published, my phone absolutely exploded with notifications, texts, calls, emails from every single member of my family, suddenly very interested in reconnecting with their long-lost daughter and sister. "So proud of you, sweetheart," my mother texted, as if we'd been in regular contact. "Always knew you'd make it big, sis," from Ethan, who had never once reached out during my unemployment. And finally from Ashley, "OMG, you're famous. We have so much to catch up on. Lunch this weekend? Love you." I placed my phone face down on my desk and took a deep, steadying breath. The family that had dismissed my career, enabled my sabotage, and abandoned me in my darkest moment was now eager to bask in the reflection of my success. Dr. Patterson had warned me this might happen. When you visibly succeed, toxic family members often reappear, not because they've changed, but because they see potential benefit to themselves. I waited a week before responding, using the time to center myself and consult with my therapist. When I finally agreed to meet them, I was calm, prepared, and protected by the boundaries I'd established in their absence. What I couldn't have anticipated was just how nakedly their financial interest would drive our reunion, or how I would ultimately respond to their brazen demands. The restaurant I chose was neutral territory, an upscale bistro downtown, public enough to discourage emotional scenes, but private enough for serious conversation. I arrived early, selecting a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. My parents arrived looking exactly as I remembered, yet somehow smaller. My mother's eyes widened as she took in my appearance. The tailored blazer, the subtle but expensive jewelry, the confident posture that comes from truly knowing your own worth. "Autumn!" she exclaimed, moving in for a hug. I didn't return it. "You look different." "Professional success agrees with me," I replied, gesturing for them to sit. My father's handshake was firmer than usual. "Always knew you had potential, kiddo. Just needed the right opportunity." The cognitive dissonance was staggering. This was the same man who had dismissed my career ambitions for years, who had told me my firing was probably for the best. Ethan arrived next. With a new girlfriend in tow, a wide-eyed woman he introduced as Kayla, who seemed inappropriately excited to meet me. "Autumn's the tech executive I was telling you about," he said, his voice carrying just a bit too far across the restaurant. Finally, Ashley made her entrance, 20 minutes late as usual. She'd lost weight, changed her hair, and was wearing an outfit that looked suspiciously like it had been purchased specifically to impress me. "My successful sister," she squealed, drawing attention from nearby tables. "Look at you! We're practically twins now that I'm in the corporate world, too." I raised an eyebrow. "You're working in corporate now?" "Well, I'm consulting for an influencer marketing agency," she said vaguely. "Very similar to what you do, just more creative." The waiter took our drink orders, sparkling water for me, expensive wine for everyone else. I noticed how my father selected the priciest bottle on the menu without hesitation. The entitlement was already showing. For the next half hour, the conversation remained superficial. My mother detailed renovations to their house. Ethan bragged about a promotion at his mid-level sales job. Ashley described her almost famous social media presence. Not once did anyone ask substantive questions about my life or acknowledge our long estrangement. It was during the main course that the true agenda finally, nakedly emerged. "So," my father began, refilling his wine glass, "your mother and I have been thinking about retirement." "That's nice," I replied neutrally. "The thing is," he continued, "the market hasn't been kind to our investments. The house needs a new roof, and there's the matter of your mother's medical bills from last year." I frowned. "Medical bills? What happened?" My mother looked surprised that I would even ask. "Just some routine tests. Nothing serious. But insurance doesn't cover everything, you know?" This was the first I'd heard of any health concerns, despite this supposedly being last year. "Anyway," my father pressed on, We've been looking at our options and we're wondering if you might be in a position to help us out. Just until the market recovers. And there it was. The real reason for this reunion? What kind of help were you thinking of? I asked, though I already knew. Well, with your new position, the article mentioned a successful acquisition. We thought perhaps a small loan. He named a figure that would have been my entire annual salary at Meridian. Before I could respond, Ethan jumped in. Speaking of opportunities, I've been developing a business plan. He pulled out a folder containing 3 poorly formatted pages. It's an app that connects dog owners for playdates. Like Tinder, but for dogs. Sounds like the dog park, I observed dryly. No, it's completely different, he insisted. All I need is seed funding. About half of what Mom and Dad need should cover initial development. I noticed Kayla's eager nodding. Clearly, she'd been promised a role in this imaginary company. Ashley, not to be outdone, placed her hand on mine. I know we've had our differences, Autumn. That silly phone prank? Water under the bridge, right? My jaw tightened so hard I felt my teeth ache at her characterization of the deliberate sabotage that had utterly upended my life. The thing is, she continued, oblivious to my reaction, I'm this close to making it big as an influencer. She held her thumb and forefinger a millimeter apart. I just need professional equipment and a proper studio setup. Maybe $50,000? I'll pay you back with endorsements for your company. I looked around the table at my family. These people who had dismissed, sabotaged, and abandoned me, now united in their blatant expectation that I would finance their lives. Let me understand, I said carefully, my voice low. You want me to give you money? After everything that happened? My mother's expression turned wounded. Sweetheart, we're family. Families help each other. Where was that family spirit when Ashley got me fired? When I was skipping meals just to pay rent? You're still upset about that? Ashley rolled her eyes. It was over a year ago, and clearly it worked out for the best. No thanks to any of you, I shot back. My father leaned forward. Look, Autumn, we raised you. Put a roof over your head, food on the table. Is it so wrong to expect some gratitude now that you've made it? The entitlement was breathtaking. In their minds, my success wasn't something I'd earned despite their sabotage and lack of support. It was something they deserved to benefit from. I need time to think about this, I said finally, signaling for the check. Don't take too long, my father called out. The roof won't fix itself. I paid the exorbitant bill without comment and left the restaurant. In the quiet taxi home, I leaned my head against the cool window and let the tears come. Not for the money they wanted, but for the family I'd never truly had. Over the next week, the messages increased in frequency and urgency. My mother sent photos of water damage from the supposedly leaking roof. Ethan forwarded amateurish business projections, showing how I'd triple my investment in his app. Ashley sent links to the exact camera equipment she needed, with not-so-subtle hints about her birthday approaching. During a session with Dr. Patterson, I vented my raw frustration. They don't care about me. They never did. They just see me as an ATM now. What do you want from them? She asked gently. Accountability. Recognition of how they treated me. Genuine remorse. And if they're incapable of that? The question hung in the air. What if they were utterly incapable of the emotional honesty I needed? What if the transactional relationship they were offering was all they knew how to give? After much reflection, I made my decision. I texted each family member the exact same message. I've given your requests some thought. Expect something in your mailboxes next week. Their responses were immediate and enthusiastic, overflowing with emojis and exclamation points. My mother suggested a family dinner to celebrate. I declined politely, saying I was busy with work. Then I set about preparing 4 very special packages, each one carefully tailored to its recipient. I spent a full weekend planning what to send. This wasn't about revenge. I'd moved beyond that desperate desire. This was about accountability, about establishing firm boundaries, and perhaps about offering them something infinitely more valuable than money, the truth. For each package, I purchased beautiful, heavyweight stationery and matching envelopes. I wanted the presentation to reflect the seriousness of my message. I arranged for tracked delivery, requiring signatures, ensuring each one would reach its intended recipient. For Ashley, I compiled a comprehensive file. It contained a printed transcript of her prank call to my boss, obtained through a former colleague who had finally believed my version of events. Alongside it, I included documentation of the devastating financial hardship that followed my firing. Overdue rent notices, utilities shut-off warnings, the pawn ticket for my grandmother's bracelet. I added screenshots of texts she'd sent during that period, casually dismissing my situation as not that bad and suggesting I'd just get another job. I also included a letter from my therapist, with personal details redacted, of course, outlining the profound psychological impact of workplace sabotage and family betrayal. Finally, I added confirmation of a $5,000 donation made in Ashley's name to a workplace bullying prevention organization. The donation came with mandatory attendance at their next awareness workshop. My personal note to her read, "Ashley, you've shown me who you are repeatedly throughout our lives." The phone call that cost me my job wasn't a prank or a joke. It was deliberate sabotage, born of jealousy and entitlement. I don't believe you're capable of genuine remorse, but perhaps this donation in your name will help others avoid experiencing what I did. I've forgiven you for my own peace, but forgiveness doesn't mean financing your lifestyle or maintaining a relationship that harms me. I wish you growth and self-awareness. For my parents, I created a different package. It contained financial literacy books, retirement planning guides, and contact information for legitimate financial advisors. I included property records showing they had refinanced their house 3 times in the past decade, despite their claims of financial prudence. I added a spreadsheet clearly demonstrating that if they'd invested the money they spent on Ashley's parade of failed ventures, they would have more than enough for retirement and home repairs. Most significantly, I included a detailed letter documenting every instance I could remember of their emotional favoritism, their casual dismissal of my achievements, and their relentless enabling of Ashley's behavior. I paired each example with research on family dynamics and emotional neglect, highlighting the destructive patterns they had established. Their note read, "Mom and Dad, I am not the family bank, and my success doesn't obligate me to fund your retirement or compensate for poor financial decisions." The roof didn't suddenly start leaking the day my business success was published. I've included resources that will actually help your situation, along with the name of a family therapist who specializes in healing damaged parent-child relationships. If you ever wish to develop a genuine connection based on mutual respect rather than financial expectation, that would be my preferred investment. For Ethan, I created a package addressing his pattern of taking the path of least resistance. I included a proper business plan template with annotations showing the glaring gaps in his dog app concept. I added market research on the pet industry and statistics on startup failure rates. I included a gift certificate for career counseling sessions and contacts for legitimate small business incubators in Boston. His note was shorter. "Ethan, you've always chosen the easiest path, including siding with Ashley and our parents regardless of right or wrong. I'm offering you something better than money, the tools to create your own success rather than attaching yourself to mine. I'd welcome a relationship with a brother who stands on his own and stands up for what's right, even when it's difficult." And for Kayla, who I'd only just met, but who was clearly being pulled into the family dynamics, I sent a small gift card to a coffee shop with a simple note. "Be careful whose family you marry into. Best wishes, Autumn." I sent all 4 packages on a Monday morning, then turned off my phone for the day, taking Bella for a long hike in the woods outside the city. I needed space from the inevitable fallout. When I returned and checked my messages that evening, the reaction was exactly as I'd expected. Outrage, disbelief, and furious accusations of cruelty. My mother had left 7 voicemails, each more tearful than the last, oscillating between, "How could you embarrass us this way?" and "After everything we've done for you." My father's messages were colder, calling me ungrateful and selfish, threatening to tell the whole family how you've treated us. Ethan's response was a single text. "Low blow, sis. Real low blow." Ashley's reaction was the most extreme, a string of incoherent, angry messages, followed by a final text saying, "You'll regret this." Nobody treats me this way. I felt a strange, profound calm as I listened to and read their responses. Not one of them engaged with the actual content of what I'd sent. Not one acknowledged the patterns I'd documented or expressed any interest in building a healthier relationship. They were angry because I had refused to be used, nothing more. That night, I sat on my balcony overlooking the Boston skyline, Bella curled contentedly in my lap. I felt lighter somehow, as if I'd finally put down a heavy burden I'd been carrying my entire life. The burden of seeking approval and love from people utterly incapable of providing it. Dr. Patterson had warned me this might happen. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to hold up a mirror to dysfunctional patterns. They may not like what they see, but you've given them the opportunity to grow. Whether they would take that opportunity remained to be seen. In the meantime, I had my own life to live, one defined by genuine connections, meaningful work, and the family I chose rather than the one I was born into. The weeks following my mailbox surprises were predictably stormy. My parents enlisted extended family members to plead their case, resulting in calls from distant aunts and cousins I barely knew, all expressing shock at my cruelty to my loving family. What fascinated me was how the story had been reframed in these retellings. According to my relatives, I had become suddenly wealthy and refused to help my struggling family out of spite. Ashley's sabotage, my parents' enabling behavior, and the years of emotional neglect were conveniently omitted from this narrative. I maintained a simple, consistent response. There's more to this story than you've been told. I'm open to healing relationships based on mutual respect, not financial transactions. Most of these well-meaning intermediaries retreated when they realized I wouldn't be guilt-tripped into compliance. A few, however, expressed curiosity. When I shared selective details, their perspective often shifted dramatically. I had no idea, my mother's sister admitted after hearing about Ashley's deliberate sabotage. That's not a prank. That's destructive. My parents maintained their stance of wounded innocence, though their approach evolved from outrage to martyrdom. My mother sent a particularly manipulative email 3 weeks after receiving my package. We've accepted that you don't want to help your family financially. That's your choice. Though it breaks our hearts, we only ask that you consider how this will look to everyone who knows us, a daughter with means refusing to help her aging parents. Is that really the reputation you want? I didn't respond. The implicit threat of social consequences, always my mother's preferred control mechanism, had lost its power over me. Ashley's reaction took a different form. She launched a passive-aggressive social media campaign with thinly veiled posts about toxic family members and success-changing people. When this failed to elicit the sympathy she expected, she escalated to more direct attacks, sharing childhood photos with captions like, "Remember when you were still part of this family? And before money mattered more than blood?" I blocked her accounts and moved on with my life. The most surprising response came from Ethan. 1 month after receiving my package, he sent a text asking if we could meet for coffee. Just the two of us. No Kayla, no parents, no Ashley. We met at a quiet cafe near my office. He looked different somehow, less polished than at our family dinner, but more authentically present. "I've been thinking about what you wrote," he began, turning his coffee cup in circles, "about taking the easy path." I nodded, but remained silent, giving him space to continue. "You're right," he admitted finally. "I've always gone along with whatever causes the least drama, even when I knew things weren't right." He took a deep breath. "What Ashley did to you, I knew it was wrong. I should have said something." It was the very first acknowledgement from any family member that my experience was valid, and it nearly brought me to tears. "Why didn't you?" I asked softly. He shrugged, looking genuinely pained. "Fear, I guess. It was always easier to let Ashley have her way. And then, I don't know. It was like once we all took a position, we had to stick with it. Admitting we were wrong would mean facing how badly we treated you." We talked for nearly 3 hours. Ethan asked questions about my struggle after being fired, listened without defensiveness, and expressed genuine remorse for his role in my isolation. He didn't ask for money or favors, just the opportunity to build a more honest relationship. "I'm not asking you to forgive everyone," he said as we parted. "Just maybe consider that some of us are capable of change." It was a start, a small one, but it was genuine. We began meeting monthly for lunch, carefully avoiding family drama, and instead focusing on rebuilding trust through honest conversation. He even enrolled in a business program at a local community college, determined to develop legitimate skills rather than chasing get-rich-quick schemes. 6 months after my packages were delivered, I received an unexpected email from Ashley. The subject line was simply, "I'm sorry." The message was brief, but startling in its departure from her usual communication. "The donation you made forced me to attend that workplace bullying workshop." I went planning to roll my eyes through the whole thing, but some of the stories people shared, they messed me up. I saw myself in the bullies they described. I'm not saying this changes anything between us, and I'm not asking for money. I just wanted you to know I'm starting to understand what I did to you. It wasn't a comprehensive apology or a promise of transformation, but it was the first time Ashley had acknowledged causing harm without immediately minimizing her actions. I responded with a simple, "Thank you for letting me know," leaving the door cracked but without rushing to reconciliation. My parents remained entrenched in their position. At Christmas, they sent a card signed, "Your loving family," with no personal message, a performative gesture, maintaining the fiction that they had done nothing wrong. I donated to a retirement planning nonprofit in their name and sent a card expressing hope that someday we might build a relationship based on mutual respect rather than obligation. As for me, life continued to flourish. My career advanced, my friendship circle deepened, and I found profound joy in mentoring young professionals navigating difficult workplace dynamics. I started dating again, cautiously at first, then with increasing openness, as I learned to trust my own judgment about character. Bella and I settled into our peaceful townhouse, truly making it home. I reclaimed my passion for photography, capturing images that told stories of resilience and connection. Some evenings, sitting in my garden, watching Bella chase butterflies, I felt a contentment I'd never known possible. The quiet joy of living authentically, unburdened by the exhausting pursuit of approval from those incapable of giving it. The most profound lesson I learned through this journey wasn't about money or success or even family dynamics. It was about the incredible liberation that comes from defining your own worth, rather than accepting others' limited valuation. It was about the courage to stand in your truth, even when voices from your past insist you should acquiesce for the sake of peace. True peace, I discovered, doesn't come from appeasing those who would diminish you. It comes from building a life aligned with your own values, surrounded by people who celebrate rather than sabotage your growth. Sometimes the most loving thing you can send to someone's mailbox isn't what they want, but what they truly need. A mirror reflecting truth, an invitation to growth, a boundary that honors both your worth and their potential to become better.